Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jules, and I'm just going to get straight into it. Data, insights, and your employer brand can be powerful tools when combined and used correctly. And by the end of this webinar, we hope you'll agree with us on 3 points. The value of data depends hugely on the source of that data. Without a goal or goals in mind, data is as useful as a car with no driver. And finally, data provides the setting, analytics tells the story, and action determines the outcome. Because as the well-known sports analyst Rory Campbell famously stated, when asked why some sports people with amazing physical attributes and performance statistics never hit predicted levels of success, these days you can measure everything. The hard bit is working out what's important to measure and what to do with it. But before we go down that road, let's take a broader look at the external trends that are shaping the world of work today and the opportunities and risks facing today's talent professionals. In the next 40 minutes or so, we'll cover the changing talent landscape, why insights are important to your employer brand strategy, and how to use data and insights to inform your talent brand strategy. Whether you see real opportunity in the McKinsey report estimating that by 2020, there'll be a global shortfall of 85 million high to middle skilled workers, or you're terrified by the prospect of findings in a different report, also conducted by McKinsey, that because of robotic automation, 800 million global workers will lose their jobs by 2030, there's no question the talent landscape is changing fast. There's now a huge amount of data out there, and we all know that decisions we make in communications, HR, marketing, and talent are business critical, because we can measure with greater accuracy than ever before the impact those decisions have on the bottom line of the business. And of course, those decisions are so dependent on the quality of our analytics, and those analytics can only be as good as the data upon which they're built. So credibility of your data source is key, and this quote from Tim Berners-Lee highlights two sides of the same coin. One representing the significant challenge of credibility and validity, and the other, the huge opportunity data drops at our fingertips. Because we all know that the age of data arrived a while ago, and today we have so many data sources that often our first real challenge is knowing which data is credible, valuable, and which data to trust. So whilst many think Berners-Lee made that quote in sheer awe of the power we now have at our fingertips, it was in fact a more cautionary in tone. Already, we all make a lot of decisions based on our social media followers, attraction media and job board data, Google Analytics, and what our ATS tells us. But how trustworthy are all these sources, and what impact does it have on our decisions if any of the data in that candidate journey chain is inaccurate? The old axiom that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link rings true here. Most of us appreciate that after putting a lot of effort into convincing stakeholders of the importance of data and analytics, we have then to prove its worth. If we can't or don't, and even worse, if we make the wrong decisions based on bad data, it can mean budget dries up and trust disappears. And we know there's already recognition of the huge importance of data and artificial intelligence, because 50% of people in our industry consider data to be extremely or very important regarding the future of the industry, and over a third believe AI and automation to be just as crucial. Arguably, these are considered to be the two things that will drive the most significant changes we see in our industry in the next decade. So we have to establish credibility in our data sources and understand how best to use them. But whilst they're considered crucial, there is obviously still progress to be made by TA professionals in adopting data and AI to shape employer branding, workforce planning, hiring, and onboarding. Only 35% view data as completely adopted, and a mere 8% view AI as adopted. Whether seemingly too daunting, complex, or out of reach, there is much progress to be made. Anecdotal feedback from people in our industry suggests this is because they don't know where to source data and how to analyze and apply it, and because AI and automation is still quite costly and often considered a nice to have rather than a necessity. So it's crucial the right data is easily accessible and presented in a format that makes drawing insights from it and deciding on actions as simple as possible. And these are the questions that come up most commonly when we look at how best to use data in the talent space. With this changing talent landscape and near universal access to data, the expectation from hiring managers and other stakeholders keeps rising. We want to understand a candidate as a person, beyond just their profile, and often we want to find those people in areas we might never have looked before. When all recruiters have access to the same names as you, how do you connect with those candidates in the right way, at the right time, and how do you make sure you stand out? And when you're getting asked these questions and other high-level tactical questions by your leadership team, how do you become a respected and valued talent consultant or partner? That's a key question for us all, because in this age of global opportunity, where increased access and transparency means job seekers can find jobs, companies, and connections all over the internet, it becomes even more important to have a strong employer brand to stand out amongst your competition. Something has to make you and your proposition appeal to the right people, and you need to know how to get that proposition in front of them at the right time. But before all of that, you need to understand what they want, what their motivations are, what interests them, and what career moves they're likely to make in the near future based on what they've done in the past. And crucially, you've got to measure the impact of all of this activity. You can do this by turning data into insights and use that to drive your employer brand strategy. There are a number of companies doing this already, from agile startups to old age blue chips, and of course the love child of the two, the so-called dinosaur unicorns. These are established companies in traditional industries like engineering and manufacturing who've recognized the need to digitalize and modernize, so acquire successful tech-focused companies to help them achieve just that. There's little doubt that McKinsey and other highly regarded consultancies and think tanks are going to be close to right about the transformation of the talent landscape through data and AI. Being a first or early mover will undoubtedly reap rewards, and I'm going to hand over to Pri, who's going to go into more detail about how that's possible. So over to you, Pri.
Thanks, Jules, for setting the scene for our next section. Hi, everyone. I'm Priyanka, and it's great to have you listening in today. In the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to talk you through how we can take some of these concepts we've talked about so far, which are a bit high level, and actually put them in practice in our day-to-day work. More specifically, let me talk about how you can use insights to guide your employer brand strategy. There are multiple use cases for leveraging insights, and it's impossible to put them all down on one slide. For today, there are 4 key areas that we can focus on where insights can help shape your employer brand approach. First, the prioritization of your talent needs. Second, finding your target audience. Third, determining the right message. And fourth, measuring the strength of your employer brand. Let's take an example of a typical scenario we come across with our clients. Let's assume Samantha is a busy recruiter working for a global company called Acmeco. She will say to us, I need to hire 1,000 people this year. Okay, that sounds like a really big number and a very daunting one at that. To be able to make any kind of decisions and move forward with building an approach to hire them, we need to break down this number. Who are these 1,000 people? What else would you want to know about them? Let's take a second to think about that. You will want to know things like where they're located, if there are some that are high priority versus others that can be lower on the priority order, how experienced they need to be, what skill sets they need to bring to the table. Once we know all of this, we have a better basis to build an approach rather than trying to tackle getting 1,000 hires through the door. Now let's take a step further and start to unfold this number. We are going to work on building a priority matrix. Some of you listening today would have done something like this before. But for those of you who haven't, it's a 2x2 matrix where we can plot our audience into different segments based on parameters that can help differentiate and prioritize them. The talent priority matrix that I'm going to take you through helps someone like Samantha get from that 1,000 hire number into actionable insights. To put those hires into a more helpful format, we are going to break them down by functional area, projected hires, regions, job titles, as well as years of experience. As an example, let's go through the first line together. One of Samantha's largest areas of need is sales. In the next 1 year, she's projected to hire 325 sales professionals across US, Mexico, Canada, UK, and India. She's listed out some of the key job titles that she will need to hire for, including account management and relationship management. On average, she'd like these people to have 5+ years of experience. You can then continue filling out these rows until you've covered all your needs. Now we've got something that's starting to look more useful. You can also put this in a more visual format and actually build charts, which very quickly will tell you what your hiring needs should be. This can be really helpful in deciding resource allocation and also going back to senior stakeholders and presenting on that. Once you've mapped out your key audiences and needs, it's helpful to gather insights that will ultimately help build the right employer brand strategy for each audience segment. You can use different parameters, but the ones that we are using are demand for talent, which is on the y-axis, and brand engagement, which is on the x-axis. The quadrant in which a segment lands will tell you what type of brand outreach to use. To understand the demand for talent, think about who else is looking to hire the same talent segment. Are your competitors looking for very similar people? Are there other companies that are looking to hire this talent irrespective of industry? One good example is technology professionals. I talk to so many of my customers who tell me they're looking to digitize their business. It doesn't matter what industry they're in currently. What this tells me is that technology professionals are in high demand today and that this trend will continue to rise in the years to come. The second parameter on the x-axis is brand engagement. This is where you need to know how switched on different audiences are about you as an employer. Are they aware of you? If so, do you have a good reputation as an employer? When you typically reach out to this audience, are they quite responsive? Now that you've built out the structure of your priority matrix, you can start plotting your audiences into each of these quadrants. Let's assume this is what your priority matrix looks like with all the segments plotted in. As I mentioned, the approach you adopt for each audience should depend on which quadrant they fall into. Let's take IT as an example. They're on the top right quadrant, so they're high in demand. They're also quite engaged with your organization. For this audience, you need direct one-to-one contact. You will need to equip your recruiters with the right tools to be able to reach out to this audience and have meaningful conversations. We'll get into how you can make those messages more meaningful with insights in just a bit. The second example here is sales. This audience is also high in demand and actually is not that engaged with your brand at the moment. This is where you need to think about warming up the audience before getting in touch with them directly. Chances of success with outreach will be much higher if you spend time in warming up the audience and making them aware of your business and the opportunities you have to offer. Ideally, these campaigns should move this audience to the top right quadrant, so then you can rely on one-to-one communication at a later stage. There would also be lower priority audiences where the demand for talent is not as high and you already have good engagement with them. Those are prime candidates to warm up throughout the year through automated nurturing and always-on branding. Okay, so we've done a good job understanding and prioritizing our audience. The second area where insights can be really critical is finding that audience. You need to look at where this talent is available, but also keep in mind the competition. Let me give you an example of a customer I worked with. This customer was looking to open a new office for technology and was looking at London as a great location. If you look at his data, that is actually very indicative of tech professionals in the UK. It seems like a good choice in the first look. However, if you take a closer look, you realize that actually there are a high number of technology professionals in London, but the demand for talent is also really, really high in the city. So you will be competing with a lot of large players. We actually sat down with our customer and worked out that Midlands might be a much better choice for a new office location. There are a good number of tech professionals there, and the competition is much lesser. So the key takeaway here is to actually make good decisions. You need to understand your audience availability, but also the market behavior. Right, so we've built out our priority matrix, and we've also worked out where to look for our key audiences. The next step is to know what to say to them. What matters to this audience? What will make you stand out in the crowd? And what will make these highly qualified and hard-to-find candidates want to respond to you? To find the right message, you need to find the sweet spot between your value proposition and its importance to the talent that you're going after. The good news is we can help you with that. The data you see on the slide shows you the top factors that an audience considers when they think of a new job and how important these factors are. These factors would be quite different when you look at sales professionals versus IT versus operations and so on. In this example, the audience cares about excellent compensation and benefits, good work-life balance, and challenging work as their top three. If you're able to offer any of these, you will win. And that's the message that should come out very clearly when communicating with this audience. The last piece of this very data-driven puzzle is to measure the reputation of your brand in front of your key audiences. Now, just to be clear, when we say brand reputation, we are zooming into your employer brand. You might have a really strong consumer brand, but if people don't recognize you as an employer of choice, there's a lot of work to be done. Brand as a concept can be really difficult to measure. Based on member behavior on LinkedIn, we can measure your talent brand index, which is calculated by looking at your reach in comparison with how engaged members are with you. I won't go into details of the methodology over here, but I do want to highlight that it can be really useful to measure this on an ongoing basis. You can see your talent brand index for different audiences. You can see how you perform against key competitors, and you can also see how your talent brand index improves over time as you deploy your employer brand strategies. In case you're looking for a more do-it-yourself way of measuring your brand, you need to look at your talent flows. Your organization would be measuring attrition. I would suggest a data-driven approach to looking at where people are going. Who are the bigger and smaller players you are gaining talent or losing talent to? It's one thing to lose 4 people to a startup or a competitor, but what if you lose the 4 best salespeople you have to that company? In this screenshot here, which is a sneak peek to our new Talent Insights product that we're launching very soon, you can see another way to look at hires and departures. Candidates show their true feelings about your brand when they decide to come work for you or leave your company to work for someone else. We can see this company, Flexus, is losing talent to Zoom jacks and gaining from freshing. That's mildly interesting, but may provide more questions than answers. Who are we losing? Where? Should we care? It gives you a starting point to answer more critical questions. If you learn that you're losing talent to Zoom jacks and then discover it's because they're perceived as having more challenging work and a more diverse work environment, you have specific items you can address with your brand messaging. So now we've looked at the 4 focus areas that form the basis of building your employer brand strategy: prioritization of your needs, finding your audience, identifying the right message, and measuring your brand strength. With that, I'm going to hand back to Jules, who can talk through a success story where our customer has benefited from adopting this data-driven branding approach.
Thank you, Pri. I've worked with a number of businesses going through growth or restructuring that have been in exactly the same situation as Intel. Where does the talent we want to hire exist, and how do we most effectively reach that talent at scale? What companies have generally done previously is follow the advice of Jim Barksdale, globally renowned ex-CEO of Netscape, which was this: if we have data, let's look at data. If all we have are opinions, I think we should go with mine. Clearly, this is risky and means someone has to put their neck on the line, and it's very often not someone senior who is prepared to do that. It's also difficult to understand what you did wrong, and just as annoyingly, what you got right and should repeat. So Intel used Talent Insights to run the data for software engineers throughout Poland to determine where they'd find the greatest concentration of that talent pool, but also how broadly dispersed they were through particular cities and who they'd be competing with for that talent. And armed with all that data, they drew practical, actionable insights and made the decision to target 2 areas in Krakow where talent was concentrated because only a few top employers were present in the city. So they knew the talent was there, and they knew these were the people they were looking to hire based on the quality of work their competitors were producing. And you can see the impact that that had. In terms of soft KPIs, it certainly helped the talent acquisition team build trust and establish real authority in this space with their network of stakeholders. In terms of hard KPIs, Intel drove significantly more of the right candidates to their social platforms and careers website. So even if they didn't apply or weren't hired on this occasion, It certainly helps Intel build their talent pipeline and increase awareness with this business-critical talent pool. And lastly, the time savings the team achieved has a financial impact, obviously, and this positively affects the bottom line in a measurable way. Alongside that, the talent acquisition team now has a huge amount of data to review to ensure that the next time they run a media campaign, they can be even more effective. And just to let you know, in September, LinkedIn will be launching Talent Insights, a new product which is all about insights based on data. With it, you get on-demand access to data in real time to make even smarter talent decisions. And with that, I'll thank you all for your time